Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have the PayJunction panel. And Ted, this is becoming an incredibly important topic in our industry.
Sarah, you're so right. It's a big part of the retail automotive industry. We're very grateful to Randy Modos, who's the co-founder and president of PayJunction, being with us today. Randy, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Wonderful to see you again, Ted. Sarah, pleasure.
Same
Well,
here. So much happening in our industry. You're squarely involved with what's happening. And Sarah, great conversation ahead.
yes, it's going to be Ted and Randy. Just to kick things right off, we're talking a lot about the customer experience across the
Mhm.
industry. And customers today, they're expecting convenience everywhere. In your view, what does a frictionless payment experience look like for fixed operations?
It's a great question. I actually want to break that into two because when you think about frictionless, there's the customer's experience and there's also the dealers or the fixed ops experience. So just let's go into the customers first. So, there's common things that everybody expects today. They want to be able to tap, click, pay remotely. That's just not only in fixed operations, but just in commerce in general. So long lines, callbacks, any manual entry, all that stuff kind of creates poor CSI scores, and you really want to make it as easy as possible for the customers. So, what are common things that are useful in fixed operations? Text to pay. So, you let customers skip the line, the cashier line, and pay before they pick up the car, eliminating bottlenecks, creating kind of 24-hour service opportunities. Really nice things to consider there. Secure card on file. So a lot of the fixed operations are about repeat business. It's the heartbeat of the dealership operations where a lot of the margin comes up, and building those relationships with consistent customers is part of the root of the fixed operations. So having cards on files. I remember I used to watch Cheers, and it's like, well, everybody remembers your name. You want to walk into a business where there's a personal relationship. Cards on file, they know you. Randy, hey, good to see you. Would you like to charge the Amex on file that we used before? Great, you're good to go. Get out of here. So that card on file reduces the friction and kind of is an important consideration when you're thinking about payments. The next thing is like conveniences around mobile wallets. So a lot of people are not carrying plastic these days. Are you set up to be able to take the tap to pay in an appropriate way for a nice contactless, smooth checkout? That's like one half of the equation. And the other thing is the friction from the fixed operations or the dealer's side of the operation. So um, many times, cost of transaction is extremely important. So, the fixed operations of the dealers will choose payment systems that may not be integrated into the fixed operations software that they're doing. They may have a separate payment system. That means that there's additional time for data entry, and the unintegrated nature of that sets up friction, not only for both the fixed operations people, staff, but also for the customer. And that friction is time. It takes more time to run the transaction. Things aren't kind of wired together. Now they're cutting costs on the payment cost, but at the cost of friction for the dealerships. So it's really about thinking about integrated systems that are offering frictionless payments for the customers, efficient processes for the people running the fixed operations, and it's about simple, effortless control for the fixed operations staff that delivers the best experience.
Randy, you mentioned friction, a frictionless experience for the customer. There's also the employee as well. That's a big part of the conversation at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. One of the pain points that Sarah and I hear a lot about is the endless entry of keystrokes multiple times into multiple systems. And, that can be a pain point for employees at the dealership. How do dealerships get ahead of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, may have different software in different parts of the operation. You may have your primary DMS, you may have different service lane software, all sorts of different things. And as I mentioned before, cost of the operation is critical, and the cost of payments is something that the controller, CFO, and the back office staff are constantly looking at. Sometimes in those decisions, many times in those decisions, they'll choose the lowest cost provider to optimize those payment costs and put in unintegrated systems. In the case maybe where they want to lower costs and they want surcharging. So that unintegrated system means that there's extra data entry. I'm going to run my transaction here, and then I'm going to enter the RO information and close it out in the service thing, and then close it all out. So the rekeying of the information introduces the potential for human error, data entry, just slow down and frustration. And again, it creates friction at the checkout. And the solution for that is integrated systems. But the big magic trick is, or the question is like, how do you get integrated systems and still keep the lowest cost of transaction? In general, your integrated payment providers with your software are going to be the highest price because they're integrated. So generally, what fixed operation think of is there's a trade-off. I have a little bit of inefficiency in data entry at the cost of lower transaction fees. And many dealerships choose lower transaction fees at the cost of the data entry. Now, what many dealerships and fixed operations groups don't know about is there's a new set of technology that's available in market called no code integrations. And that allows the dealerships and the fixed operations to choose the payment provider that they want to integrate into the software that they're using to run the business. And that software seamlessly integrates into either the DMS or the service lane software to introduce either the features or the rate plans that weren't available in the system that they're using. And yeah, so the no code platform, we have a version of it. It's a general technology out there. It's a movement in basically payment processing in software in general that returns that freedom of choice back down to the dealerships, and the fixed operations group, so they can choose an integrated provider that eliminates the data entry, solves all those kind of friction problems, and then returns the power back of choice to them for the payment processing. So the other thing too is like you're thinking about reconciliation. So the fixed operations groups are obviously working with the controller in the back office to make sure that everything is seamless in terms of like reporting. So for example, like an integrated system, an unintegrated system, you may run a transaction. You're going to charge the card. That RO number may not be associated with the transaction. So if you have a chargeback later, or you're trying to close out end of month or end of quarter, there's a constant back and forth getting everything to line up in terms of your close and your reconciliation. An integrated system solves that because the data is all linked up, everything is smooth and connected. So the reconciliation process is not only better for the customer, for the fixed ops group, but also for the back office in the end of month and end of quarter close. We know how much time that takes an entire dealership to do that. So it's a very interesting new technology that every dealership and group should understand, that they now have choice in terms of an integrated payment processor that isn't the default integrated payment processor that came with the software that they're using to run the operation.
Well, Randy, I want to go back for a second about what you said about the controller, because as Ted and I know, if the controller is unhappy, everybody is unhappy in the dealership. And, the controller they're responsible at the end of the day for the dollars and cents on all of this that is happening back and forth between, the dealership, the customer, and anything else that they're using in that integration in between. So, many controllers tell us that reconciliation, especially across rooftops, is one of their biggest headaches if they have multiple stores. So, what's the smartest way for a dealership group to really simplify all of this?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And that's exactly what I was pointing out. We have the same conversations with the controllers as well. So some of the issues are, for example, if you're running an unintegrated payment system, like I've mentioned before, they're going to run it through the payment system. The RO is not linked. So if they need to line something up and kind of work out an issue in lining up a transaction, it's hard to get everything to line up. So they're constantly stitching together data from different different payment providers, different rooftops, different departments, putting everything together for their end of month and end of quarter reconciliation. It's a lot of time that they all spend. So yeah, it's an interesting problem. So the issue really isn't the effort. They're working hard. The issue is disconnection. So when you choose a lower payment provider cost at an unintegrated system, you create more work for the back office. The integrated system solved that. And what I mentioned to you before is the no-code platform choosing a system that's a no-code platform that allows you to add in a fully integrated alternative payment provider with a lower cost and more features but still designed to clean up the end of month reconciliation, is really one of the power moves that you can do as a dealership, lowering your costs but not affecting your operation. So the controllers can log in, they can see every merchant account, every department, every brand. They can get a breakout between parts, finance, service, which departments are surcharging and not surcharging. They can choose which departments they want to turn on the surcharging. They get automated data syncing between the system that's running it, whether the DMS or the service software, back into everything. And all of this is real time and designed to reduce the end of month reconciliation process. So it's really important for the dealerships, the controllers, the fixed operations groups to know that they have options out there to lower costs and still improve operations.
Randy, you mentioned costs. It seems that everything at the dealership these days costs more. All right. And that's one of the things that fixed ops, service managers, parts directors are all grappling with right now. It's one of the things that Sarah and I hear a lot about here at the Roundtable. From your perspective, what's the best way for dealerships to manage some of those costs without impacting that customer experience that's so vital?
Yeah, great question, Ted. Thanks. So this is actually a huge narrative in the entire auto industry right now. There's a big wave of looking at the cost of transactions, and you have rising cost of transactions in terms of payment processing, affecting margins, and especially affecting on big ticket orders, but just across the entire dealership, the cost of transactions going up in major consideration. It can get between 2 to 3% of the total effective transaction fees in terms of the cost. So it's a major consideration for the dealership. So what we're seeing is a wave of dealerships deploying technology like smart surcharging to offset nearly 100% of the credit card processing fees that the dealership is taking. And smart surcharging is a really interesting thing because the initial reaction we always hear from whether it be GMs or usually owners or even controllers is, I don't want to do anything that's going to affect the CSI of the dealership. And what we educate the market about is when consumers are presented with freedom of choice, meaning that they're shown a route of transaction on the terminals that presents a route with a surcharge and without a surcharge. What I mean there is when you pay with a credit card, you have a surcharge. When you pay with a debit card, you don't have a surcharge. And they're presented clearly with two options, surcharge and no surcharge. And they make the choice of whether they want to pay with a surcharge or not, depending on their payment type. What we've seen from the data and the surveys is there's little to no impact against any CSI when that method is used. And then they're able to take nearly 100% offset of all the credit card processing fees and return that back to the bottom line. And as we know, the fixed operations is the heartbeat of the dealerships. They drive the revenue and they create stability for the dealerships in long term from a revenue perspective. This takes 3% of the transaction costs, both in the dealership and the finance operation, also the fixed operations, sales operations, and puts all that money back into stability into the dealership. So it's been a huge wave. There's a whole bunch of dealerships doing it very effectively without impacting CSI. And again, the way to do that is freedom of choice, clearly presented to the consumer at time of transaction, where they're making the choice of whether they have the surcharge or no surcharge. And the way to do that also effectively is with customer-facing terminals. So some of the other surcharge providers out there, you'll get a credit card terminal, but the terminal only faces the cashier or the operator in fixed operations is running the computer. The consumer can't see the credit card terminal. So what that means is the person behind the desk has to explain the surcharge to the person. And they have to explain it in a compliant way to make sure that there's a proper disclosure, to make sure that they're explaining the options correctly. And that communication requires constant training and retraining of the staff. So customer-facing terminals ensure that the freedom of choice is clearly communicated to the customer. Legal disclosures are properly communicated so that there is no hole in terms of any compliance issues. And that consistent communication is a protection against CSI. And then from our data is allows people the dealerships to recapture cost of transaction without any impact on CSI. And just to put a dollar figure on this, so example, real dealerships that are using the smart surcharging technology with customer-facing terminals, no impact on CSI, have lowered their effective rates 58%, and we're seeing about $130,000 per year savings per rooftop on the dealership groups. So take that on the multi-rooftop dealership group and multiply that. And you can take a look at the potential financial impact with, negligible impact against CSI with the correct technology, right? So that's the impact of it all.
Randy, if I can follow up, that customer-facing terminal is also much more transparent for the customer because the customer is in control. They can see everything, and like you said, we don't have to have that constant training of someone to explain that to the customer.
Yeah, there are what you'll find is the payment providers who do surcharging and offer employee training constantly because they don't have customer facing terminals. It's just a constant battle to keep your dealership staff trained how to properly disclose it in a way that doesn't impact CSI, making sure that they're giving the legal disclosures properly so you don't get in trouble either at the state level or at the card brand level. And with the customer facing terminals, it's all handled because like they can see it and they have all the information they need. It's their choice. And again, consumers don't have an impact on CSI when they feel like they have choice and everything's clearly explained to them.
Everybody, Randy Modos is the co-founder and president of a company called PayJunction. They work with dealerships. They're in the dealership space. They work the entire dealership, and they bring modern convenience of payment to the customer. Randy, this is an exciting space to be in right now, and it's probably one of the last things that a customer remembers, paying for the service. And it's so vital in fixed operations, since I would imagine in most circumstances, the customer pays with some kind of a card, a debit or a credit card, and that's a big part of the process.
It is, yeah. A lot. I mean, a vast majority of the transactions occurring in the dealerships are on payment cards. And again, the technology that gives this choice to the customer clearly handles all the compliance issues, like little nuanced things, like are you identifying credit and debit correctly and applying surcharging only to credit and not debit? Are you giving the proper legal disclosures based on state and other scenarios? Are the consumers educated in what they're doing? When all that's done correctly, you can very efficiently return all of that margin back to the bottom line, strengthen the fixed operations margin through that, and also the margin through the rest of the dealership.
Randy, our audience is making their plans now for the year ahead. If they want to get more information on PayJunction and how you can help them, what's the best way for our audience to reach out and find out more?
Listen, we love talking to our customers. We're very engaged. So you can call our phone line, get on with a specialist who works specifically with dealerships. We will take it. We will learn about your different organization, whether it be a single rooftop, multi rooftop. We'll learn about the fixed operations and the entire dealership operations. Put together reports that show surcharge saving reports, or if you don't want to do surcharging, just basically payment reports. We'll give you a demonstration of technology. Our website, which will be shared here, has a beautiful breakdown of how we service the auto industry with videos and walkthroughs of everything. And then we'll be at NADA, of course, in person. If you guys are there, we'd love to meet.
Sarah, exciting times in our industry. It just gets better and better.
It does, Ted. And Randy, this is so exciting to hear how you're leveraging technology and also keeping the customer experience top of mind.
Thank you. I appreciate the time, Sarah.
Randy, congratulations to you and the team at PayJunction. Everybody, you can visit them on the web. You see the scroll down below. Randy Modos, again, president and co-founder at PayJunction. PayJunction, everybody, with us here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.